Welcome, David. Welcome to SW Podcast. I think we are really excited to host you in our podcast. And today, definitely, I'm really excited, especially the kind of experience and especially the experience you carry and the respect you carry in the CPA fraternity or accounting firm in US. So it will be a privilege and really it will be a great insight to hear out and learn from you.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to talk about what's happening in the profession. And it's wonderful to be here with you.
And especially we are in exciting time.
Yeah,
Lot of unknown is there. You never know what is going to happen. So David, I think let me start with your professional journey or introduction. I think firstly you have a very prestigious or a successful career of almost 41 years. And I think the best part of it is it's you have been working for with one firm so long. I think that's a very rare thing to happen in this Gen Z world.
yeah.
So maybe if we can start with your professional journey and introduction, it will be great for the audience to know about that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's a pleasure. And, I get that question all the time, and I speak with our staff and our interns and our new hires every year and tell them about my story and my journey and, speak about how wonderful the profession is. And I still believe it's one of the most wonderful professions that you could possibly be in. And I joined, and everyone always says, how come you stayed at the same firm for so long? And I say, well, that's an easy one because it always feels like something different. Every day, every week, every month, every year, there's always something new and exciting happening. And the beautiful thing is in this profession, you get to see so many different aspects of business, so many different companies that we work with, so many different industries. And then you can specialize in a particular industry. And then also there's so much happening in the firm and you learn about, what makes a CPA firm tick and grow and thrive. And that was always very exciting, So I started my career right out of the University of Maryland. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. And I looked at the big eight at the time and I interviewed with a bunch of other size firms. And when I walked into this office here at Cohn Resnick in Bethesda, Maryland, I just felt something different. There was an excitement and I could see it on everybody's face and they were engaged. And I said, you know what, this sounds like it might be the place for me. So I started my career here. And at the time, we had just two offices. And, it's really a story about growth and what's happened in the profession, and particularly in the US with, so much growth in CPA firms. And you look at, 40 years ago, the size of firms. And, today, we went from two offices and eight partners 40 years ago to, now we have close to 400 partners and 35 offices in the US. And we have offices in India and in the Philippines and 5,000 people. And it's just very exciting. And most of that growth has been organic growth. We've had some strategic acquisitions over the years, but most of it's been organic growth. And I can tell you, the reason I've stayed and what I think makes the profession so exciting is it's the different experiences and working with so many different clients and helping them with solutions and also working with so many quality colleagues, that you learn from and that have been mentors to me and that you can pay it forward and help people advance in their career.
No, I agree, David. I think if we someone analyze in our if someone is going working in a CPA or accounting firm, if the culture and the objective and your vision and everything fits into one firm, then it
Mm.
makes sense to continue because otherwise, if you see the nature of work, like example, if you're doing audit in one firm, if you switch to other firm and you want to do audit, it will remain the nature of work will remain the same. Only people, culture, and everything is going to
Yeah,
change,
yeah.
or the monetary amount.
Yeah, no, that's so true. It's like everybody's doing the same thing, but yeah, the people and the culture change, and that culture is so important, And I grew up in a culture where it was very collaborative, and with growth, I always, was very motivated and engaged and excited by the growth because that there's new opportunities there. And it's not just growth for the sake of growing. A lot of firms, grow through acquisition and there's
Yeah.
not a lot of organic growth. A lot of firms have organic growth, but they can't scale because they can't hire and train and develop people as fast. And we've been successful with the organic growth because we're able to bring on people, train them, onboard them, and there's a lot of collaboration. And we've done that throughout the US and internationally. And that was always what made things so exciting is you could keep doing the same thing if you wanted to, but then there were lots of other opportunities. And then even if you were doing the same thing, working with the same client, people get pulled in different directions when there's so much growth because you need them in different places. For instance, we open a new office and we send 3 or 5, partners and managers there. And then that creates opportunity for the people
Wow.
that are left behind in that office because then they
Yeah.
step up into those roles. And, so that's what keeps things, exciting.
No, I agree with you. Obviously, if you ask my view, what you have done is incredible, and that should be the right way. And unless I'm not against inorganic till the time it fits into the right strategy, culture, and other aspects are concerned. Just for the sake of inorganic growth, you find reasons to accommodate. Well, organic is organized, is like it is your house, it is your culture where you want to have that culture in house and you're
Hmm.
building it. It may take some time, but finally,
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
culture is the same, environment is same, people are motivated, and all that
Hmm.
aspects are concerned.
Yeah, yeah. And the more you grow and expand, I would tell you, the harder it is to maintain your culture. And that's
Yeah.
where, you really need a solid foundation and you need people to really articulate and demonstrate
Yeah.
your culture. And, you need to walk the walk. It's easy to talk and say, oh, we're collaborative and oh, everybody's, supportive and but you really have to show that you are and prove
Yeah.
that you are. And one of the things that I always like as a gauge, a barometer, is when new people join our organization from other organizations, can they feel a difference? Can they feel our culture?
Yeah.
And then can they articulate, why it's special? And then that, to me means we're doing it right. It's all about taking care of your clients, and it's all about training and developing and taking care of your people and giving them the support and
Yeah.
treating everybody like a human being and with respect. And people have family lives, and they have things going on in their life, so you have to really try to support people in every way.
No, I think you are right. You used the right word. Is about giving respect to the people, either your staff or client. Obviously, client you supposed to give, but that's enough. But you have to have culture. Setting second is be ethical in either with your stakeholder or people or a client. And finally, obviously, you have to deliver to the client. The technical
Hmm.
capability and all that is always important. But I think the challenge is this commercial world has been the respect and the ethics that has
Yeah.
been compromised, I would say. You can't
Hmm.
have that barometer or data bench to compare, say, decade to decade. But I feel there is a declining trend, I would say. Especially
Yeah.
you started in 1985. If you see the era now, there is a
Mhm.
declining trend on these aspects.
Yeah, I think so important because our profession is founded upon trust and
Yeah.
integrity. And, that's so important with everything the way we operate, and I think, your reputation is the most important thing. And, we have to satisfy the client demands, but we also have to satisfy our professional standards. And, you can't compromise quality no matter what. And, I think if you maintain that quality and integrity, you will get the respect. And if it's a matter of, choosing, what clients you work with and what people you bring into your organization, that's the most important thing. And, we, are very serious, about
Yeah.
quality. And the complexities, in the business also, have changed dramatically in the
Yeah.
last, 5 years, and the next five, will be even more dramatic. I think it's going to surpass anything we've ever seen, with technologies, so there's that accounting or tax or
Yeah.
advisory foundation, technical skills, but then there's so much complexity with rules and regulations and all the systems that we're using and the technology that we're using within our business, has become far, far advanced and is
Um,
continuing to advance. And that's going to really, change the way we all work and serve our client. It's going to be a very, very fast moving future.
I think there are 2 points from my side, David, on this. One is people for sometime forward, we are in the business or in a game of trust and relationship. That's the foundation of business. Either it was relevant 40 years back also, it is relevant today also, and it's going to be relevant post AI also
Hmm.
era.
Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
I think with the principle people are forgetting or forgot, especially the young generation, that we
Hmm.
are in the game of trust and
Hmm.
relationship, I would
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
And second, I think, as you rightly said, next 5 years, I'm very sure you what the not have seen like in your 40 years of professional career or my 30 year, the change which is going to happen in next 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. I think we're going to see a lot of change. Always been very technology forward, process forward, state of the art as it relates to technology and how we view things. And we're always looking for ways to be more efficient and retooling and training. And, as you get bigger, we've really been a bottoms up and a top down organization.
Um,
Bottoms up meaning it takes everybody to be creative, ideate, come up with ways of doing things better,
yeah,
and then pushing that out to our peers and colleagues, and then formalizing that through institutional learning and training. And then top down, we have folks in our national office, whether it's assurance or tax specialty areas, our technology systems and operations teams through our COO and AI initiatives. And those are initiatives where we're looking for ways to improve and advance, and then we're pushing that down. So it's bottoms
yeah,
up and it's top down.
yeah.
But
Agreed.
you can't be an organization that just you're sitting there, you're waiting for somebody in that ivory tower or that laboratory to give you something. There's so
Possibly.
much. So yeah, I think we're going to see with data, certainly the challenges with privacy and security,
Yeah,
and then managing data and the way we can shift how we work by automating manual processes.
yeah,
We've been doing that. We've automated a lot of manual processes in the past. We
yeah.
created a proprietary audit methodology for one of our largest practices, our affordable housing practice, and we're pushing that out to other practices. But now we've got a dedicated AI group that is creating tools to be able to automate these manual processes,
Yeah.
that let's say we spend 8 hours doing a substantive test, now that's automated and it can happen in 20 minutes. And then we've created bots that can then review what was done automated,
Yeah.
and then it goes to human beings. And, we're automating functions that then we can transfer over to other functions across audit and tax, that will impact the widest range of the firm, all the while, and then piloting, rolling out training, and then all the while we have thousands of people that are doing things and creating things on their own using AI, Chat GPT, Claude, and then we have to find ways for them to be able to push that out to other people. So there's a lot that's going to be happening. Fortunately, I think the younger generation is more accustomed to some of the technology. They're learning it in school, they're using it in school. We've created some digital analytics, critical thinking exercises that we've been teaching at colleges that roll across our real estate industry. It's one of our largest practice areas.
And you've
So
been
I
leading
think,
for long.
yeah, yeah.
So I think, David, you and your team is on a mission. And as I hear out you, your plan seems to be very strong and very effective. I'm wishing you a lot of success to you and your team. It's definitely you are going to be one of the leader in terms of innovation and maybe the modern accounting firm, I would say, in terms of the post. So David, I'm really interested, like you started, you taken over as a CEO in February 2020. And then you got into the mission of transforming from a traditional accounting firm to a modern advisory firm, obviously. And I think in 2020, the period was about COVID and all
Yep.
that. There was no AI, I would say, which is there as
Hmm.
of now. I think what thought process or what was the push factor to transform from a modern advisory firm? Because as I said, obviously you have done a lot of actions also. It's not about the vision and idea. I know a lot of people, this idea is there for long also, but I think once you taken over, you have taken action also, started new practice, like for public finance, sustainable practice recently. You have someone helping on strategic AI, then a lot of around advisory and valuation practice also. So I think I'm really interested in understanding your thought process on this modern advisory practice, if I
Yeah.
can use the name that.
Yeah, modernization. Yeah, absolutely. So, when my path through becoming the CEO, I was an audit partner. I grew up, in the audit side of the business. I was in our tax department for a year, and then I went back to audit. I had a wide range of experiences working on advisory engagements, forensic accounting, diligence with
Wow.
acquisitions, you name it, operational reviews of businesses. But I was an audit partner by training and practice. And with that, I oversaw one of our offices. It was one of our larger offices. I was a co-managing partner for 7 years, and then I became the head of our real estate industry practice. And that was more strategic, growth oriented. Running an office is, a lot of growth within a particular area.
Wow.
And operations, and I was always tuned to client demands and processes and how to manage efficiencies and project management, if you will. And
Wow.
I think project management is one of the critical areas that people need experience with, as far as what we do, because we're multitasking all the time. Nothing ever goes as planned ever, and even the finest tuned engagement, there's something that's always going to be
Wow.
off timing. And growth was always very important, taking advantage of growth. But then operational excellence, was, to me, was something that, was very important in how we
Wow.
operated. And as you get bigger and grow into different industries and different practices, everybody's doing things differently because, their industry or practice, demands that, so you have to, kind of, we organized through service line. I thought that was important. So we have geography, we have industry, and we have service line. And that's the matrix that we function in. And in my view, all three of those legs of the stool are equally as important. I mean, geography, is
Yeah.
important. You have to, create a feeling of community, for all your people in all your offices and in all your communities, and be involved. And industry is important because that's where you establish your expertise. And that's how we've been able to grow and compete with larger firms, is because we coordinate as an industry across the entire firm
Yeah.
versus being geographic, centric. And so then you can bring bigger team to a
Yeah.
client that has expertise. And a lot of, folks have come from the big four, or they grew up in the firm and they've spent their entire careers within an industry, and, they're specialists. And then service line, you have to be able to have the power of the full service line. So that was one thing that, I said was very important, and
Yeah.
then it was operational excellence. Let's create teams, and we aligned our leadership teams around our pillars, which are a extraordinary people experience for all of our people, an extraordinary partner experience. We want our partners to have a good experience, extraordinary client experience. Our clients and how we work with our clients they have to have a good experience. It's profitable growth. We want to keep growing, but it's got to be with the right clients. And
Yeah.
then it's operational excellence. So those five pillars, we've created leadership teams around so
Yeah.
that they're focusing on those five pillars all the time and advancing in how we operate, and that's when I got into the role, my key themes were operational excellence and quality, how we do things. We have to figure out the best ways to do things, and we got to make sure we're all doing it that way. But you have to balance that with autonomy. So your partners have to have creative freedom,
Yeah.
to start new practices, go into new territory.
Encouragement and
Uh,
risk.
yeah, yeah, and then profitable growth. So it's
Yeah.
operational excellence, and then you keep moving in that direction and keep people focused in that, and build your leadership team around that. And that's what, keeps everybody moving forward and keeps it collaborative. And when the market's really good and there's a lot of opportunity, you can have the whole firm support you to be able to get the work done, including our team in India. We have 1,000 people in India,
Wow.
and, and that was another part of our operational excellence journey, was to
Yeah.
create the same experience for our people in India as we have in the US and all of our offices,
Yeah,
and create
obviously,
that connectivity.
yeah, 20% of the team members in India. So that's a very substantial percentage of people in
Hmm.
India. So David, I think just a coincidence, I've been also auditors for in my professional journey. I'm sure I
Hmm.
was not the best auditor like yourself, But I think one thing I was always curious to learn because in audit you do different clients and everything is concerned. So I was always curious to learn from my each client what they are
Hmm.
doing right to be successful and what they are doing wrong not to be
Yeah.
successful. So that was, I think, the learning which I was
Hmm.
always interested for each of my
Hmm.
client over the years.
Hmm.
I think that, like you were mentioning the word operational excellence, I think what I heard about is I speak with a lot of people. The challenge comes with is the plans. Sometimes obviously the say plan is very good, but the execution is not there with the right team attitude and the effectiveness is concerned. I think that's where I'm finding, as you explaining me, I'm finding it's not only plan, it is executed plan.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I think I'm really encouraged to see that also.
Yeah.
So
I also always, love learning from my clients,
yeah,
and I think each client experience is a learning experience,
uh,
because even if you're in the same industry, every client does something different.
uh,
Their systems are different, their processes are different, and so, it's a wonderful learning experience, with your clients and each engagement also. And you've got that, your internal firm
uh,
workings, that, and you're trying to be as proficient as you possibly can. And then, you've got the client experience and you're learning from the client, but you want to help that client,
uh,
be more efficient and, respecting the independence standards. You want to be able to help your client succeed, in their business, in their goals.
no, I agree. I think, David, whenever I say I have a 30-minute client meeting for audit closure, or I would be always interested to spend only 10 minutes to discuss audit observation on the closure point.
Mhm.
Rest 20
Mhm.
minutes, I'll be interested to know about what you are doing in the business, what is the plan, challenges, competition, and all that aspect is good.
Mhm.
That's very difficult to find out or learn from books or otherwise. That's the real experience if you can get from your clients. That's a new learning from them.
Mhm.
Obviously, they are not going to make me learn audit, how to do audit, but that's the learning I can always have from them.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
David, moving on, I think to the next topic, which is very, I think it is a very interesting topic which is being discussed, especially in US market and obviously growingly in Europe and other part of the world, is that how good is the PE investment for accounting firm? And
Yeah.
I know February 2015, Apex Partner has invested in your firm, and obviously must be a good decision by yourself and your team member. Let me put my view first so that there's no biasness and all that is concerned. I think, according to me, obviously, it all depend upon the vision and the thought process of the partners because we are people of partners who are running show. It is not in a corporate world. It is the partners who are running a show. And if they are aligned, if it fits into the vision, I think it's good for them. If it all depend upon the vision and the interest of the partners of that particular firm. It may be right for some firm, it may not be, or other
Yeah.
firm may not be interested in that. I am not going to say it is wrong, but it is all depend upon the interest and the vision and everything is concerned. And the growth plan also, because for growth also, let's be honest, you need money to grow also, other than the other aspect also. So all depend upon.
Mhm.
So that's my view, but obviously I'll be more interested in knowing your thought process. As you explained, David, on this, so I will be more interested, what was the one factor which influenced you to take this investment, and what was the
Mhm.
one factor which was pushing you not to take it?
I would tell you there was a couple of great thoughts there, and I share those thoughts. It's perfect for everyone.
Yeah.
There were three factors that caused us to go that direction. And let me just first say that it's been great for us. We have a wonderful partner in Apex Funds, and that was a process to pick the right partner, and that was important to make sure we have the right partner. We are a firm that always believed that bigger's not better, better's better, but we were always on a growth trajectory.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we found ourselves, and I always tell people, I feel like, our culture's the same and it feels the same as when I started, when we had two offices and eight partners, as it does now, that we're an international organization with 5,000 people and 400 partners and, $1.2 billion in revenue. It feels the same to me. And my view's the same, is bigger is not better. Better is better. Okay. But we're going to
Yeah.
continue to
More
grow for
qualitative.
all the reasons we discussed. We want to continue to grow. And we were at a point where we felt, we need to keep moving forward. We are in the upper middle market. We're
Yeah.
competing with the tier that's under the big four and the big four, of course, everyone else.
Yeah.
But our main competitors are those that are, right in the top 10 firms. And there were several things that, we saw happening. One was technology.
Yeah.
And we want to continue to be on the forefront of technology.
Yeah.
And over the past 5, 6 years, we've had a lot of success with revenue growth. We doubled in size. Partner income continued to grow, and our margins have continued to grow. So it's hard to finance your growth, but your partner income's still rising.
Yeah.
And at some point, we saw that there's going to be a lot of investment required with AI and technology advances and scaling for the future. And we've always been managed to scale our business to where
Yeah.
we needed it to be. So it was technology investment. It was investment for M&A.
Yeah.
And we're not a big M&A shop. We've done typically 1 or 2 deals a year. And that typically been for geographic expansion or new practice area that we were excited about, or to enhance existing practices. And so it was M&A expansion, and it was lateral partner hiring. And we saw that, you need capital for that. And then the third thing was the change in the partner model, going from a deferred comp retirement program to a real ownership equity program with
Yeah.
rollover equity, so that
Yeah.
partners can participate in the value of the
Yeah.
business. And those were the three things. And the first two were definitely, a priority. And then the third one, we felt like with more firms moving in that direction and younger partners, I think, wanting something more tangible. So if you make partner, let's say when you're 35, you got 28 years before,
Yeah.
you're fully vested. Now in this model, partners have real equity, and that can monetize over, a 5 to 7 year period, and people will have multiple bites at that apple. Somebody could be in there for 3 different liquidity events. And that, we saw as a more appealing model for all partners, but particularly, younger partners.
Yeah.
And so that, is what kind of drove us to let's investigate. And then what happened also was we, through this process, wanted to maintain our culture, maintain our vision on growth. And it was largely organic growth
Yeah.
and some strategic acquisitions where it made sense, where 1 + 1 = 3, 4, or 5, not just for the sake of adding revenue. And
Yeah.
believe me, we have a corporate development team, and we're looking at, 10, 20 deals at any one point in time. There might be 1 or 2 that stick out. This is a really
Yeah.
good fit, because of the strategic nature of what we can do together. And, so many others just don't make sense for us. So those were the main drivers. And then as far as our partner, we wanted to make sure that we had a partner that really understood our culture and our vision. And I believe Apex really does understand our culture. They have a good
Yeah.
culture, and they
Yeah.
understand that creating a better company is better than creating a bigger company. And, they also respect the organic growth, because we've had a unbelievable organic growth track record. And that's, because of the collaboration, the coordination, our structure of helping each other out and being experts within the industries that we play in, we're able to support organic growth. And then it's also the investment in lateral partners. So we've hired 25 partners just in the last year. Our average in prior years has been, around 8 or 9, and we've been able to accelerate those initiatives. And so we've accelerated our technology initiatives. We hired a chief technology officer. We hired a head of global AI, building and developing tools. We've acquired 2 firms within the last year, and there are a couple more on the horizon. And then we've been able to bring in 25 new partners. And then partners have real equity and they can, participate in the value. So all those things, are kind of working out. I would tell you that, the one thing that was a question going in and remains a question is what happens in the next turn? Who's your next partner going to be? What's the exit strategy and what does that look like? And, that's still an unknown. And that unknown was something, that we talked a lot about as we went through this process. And my view is, you're in a worse position if you're just staying the same and standing still. Now, if you look at the landscape in the US, within, the top 30 firms, there's only a handful that are not in the alternative practice structure. And, there will be more to come. And, they'll likely survive and do fine and probably can, market and leverage that, we're independent, and that's all perception. But, I think the private equity industry and investment community, has absolutely discovered that this is a great business. It's a great business model and they're smart. So we're happy with the partner that we have.
No, no, I agree with it. And just to mention, obviously not the 30 top 15 who have not taken or gone for alternative practice model. I speak with them very closely. So I know their thought process,
Mhm.
what they're thinking and all that. I think that's the same thing which I mentioned about is all
Mhm.
vision and partners' interest and all that.
The one other thing is you mentioned the partnership model, and even if you're corporate owned, PE owned, public company, you still partners are operating their books of business. They're working with
Yeah,
their clients. And you still have that partnership model. It's just the economic structure and incentives are different in how you participate, but that's very important. And our sponsor understands that. Our investors
yeah.
understand that. Our board understands that. And that's one of the most important things is that partners are happy, partners are motivated, they're incentivized, they're engaged, and they're motivating others and serving their clients well.
No, I think agree, David. So I think all the aspect which you mentioned also and which I also mentioned about, I think I have a view on two different aspects that why someone should go for, although I have not taken any P money still, because for the right reason I'm saying. One is if you, David, see last 10 years, especially the kind of startup companies which have built up over the period of 10 years or 15 years, and the kind of money their peer employees have made through ESOPs or the new compensation model, I would say. So
Mhm.
my point is that there is a successful case of not one company, of an ecosystem where the compensation model has changed. People have taken risk and they have made wealth, and the businesses have also grown so much in revenue and market capitalization. So if that's the case, why can't we do it? What is the reason for not having that compensation model? Because you want to be a competitive in the right market. If someone is at 100, you want to be at 50, how can you survive? So that's an imbalance from an ecosystem of a compensation point of view is concerned, and the risk and reward also. And second is, and that's my personal thought process, we accountant are very conservative, are not taking
Yeah.
risk. So I
Yeah.
think we somewhere we need push or a killing instinct from people who are risk taker like PE and all that, so that they can push us to take the risk which we are not been trained also and we are not
Mhm.
used to. We are always risk averse. Don't take risk. Don't take risk.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
been
Mhm.
we've been trained like this only. You also do audit and always risk, and that's why because we've been trained, we don't take business risk for ourselves also. I think the CPA fraternity or accounting firm needs some, I would say, the risk appetite or a learning or a killing instinct
Mhm.
that can bring us and take risk and innovate ourselves into a new world.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's true. And, one of the other things, there's some fallacies, about private equity also, and with accounting firms are stable businesses with recurring revenue.
Uh,
And the, total addressable market, the TAM, if you will, the opportunity for expansion and growth is pretty big,
Yeah,
for accounting firms, with the companies that need services and the wide range of services and the complexities. And, you look at the wide range of advisory services and compliance, just tax and assurance. So, private equity sees that there's an opportunity here in the market, and they also are very focused on the operations of the business, and the analytics, and how can we operate better. And
yeah,
not only are we growing the revenue, but we're growing the margins by operating better and making the right decisions. That sometimes in a partnership model, we're so focused on the client, that will help us all in the future, because we're focused on the client operations and versus some of the other things. So those are some of the things I think that they help us improve with.
I think you rightly mentioned we always focus on very specific or client to client or
Hmm. Hmm.
portfolio to portfolio or firm to firm. But
Yeah.
if you see just the US market size, just for Big Four only in US, they are around $200 billion in terms of revenue. So that's the
Hmm.
time just for Big Four.
Hmm.
Other, if you include, say, equivalent amount, say it is $400 billion TAM opportunity,
Hmm.
that's a big opportunity to grab. It's just you need to have right people, strategy, and capital to go
Yeah.
for it. Example, for out of 400 billion, if you were able to take just 1%, which is a
Hmm.
4 billion,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
And,
say you
there's,
are at
yeah.
$1 billion, if you able to capture just 1% of the market opportunity,
Yeah.
it's $4 billion.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
But
Then so you execute on that, but then
uh,
you're also executing on increasing your margins because you're operating more efficiently, and then you're getting it from both sides. But yeah, and I think every and you notice this because you look at the different what each of the firms are doing that are PE backed, and everybody's got a little bit of a different strategy. Some
uh,
are international strategies, buying the firms in other countries.
GT,
Some are
GT is
just
doing well.
pure
US based.
revenue geography plays, like let's just add more offices, add more revenue, and it's more of a franchise model. And others have we're more focused on organic growth, operational excellence, and the industry expertise, and growing new services and deeper within our client segments now. And yeah, you mentioned we started a public finance
Yeah,
practice. We're working on private finance transactions, modeling transactions. We enhanced our digital practice.
yeah.
We're building out our CFO advisory practice and our client accounting services CAS practice. We see that those as some of the fastest growing areas, with the complexities in the capital markets and with accounting systems. And, clients just don't want to deal with that, and they don't know whether they're functioning right or not functioning right. And the ones with institutional capital, have much more complex reporting demands.
No, I agree, David. Obviously, if you ask me my view, what I am doing at my firm, obviously I don't have P, but from a considering the AI and all that, obviously
Hmm.
each country, each firm can have its own specific. But on the macro level, what I feel, obviously we all are doing traditional. There is no point to, there's nothing to invent out of it. I think what
Hmm.
we need to invent out of is new capabilities like you are doing strategic AI
Hmm.
and all that. I think that should be our roadmap for the growth of the future. Is one is
Hmm.
new capabilities which add value to the client and solve the problems.
Hmm.
Obviously, it is evolving, maybe 5 years different, next 10 years different. So that
Hmm.
should be the trajectory for the growth. And I think the second one, which is going to be relevant for the future, is if you can provide integrated global services for the global clients, because
Hmm.
that's where the value proposition is there. Because that's where clients company struggles, they want value, they want solution. If we
Hmm.
can go get into that, provide integrated global services or
Hmm.
solution, that's a big opportunity
Yeah,
from a
yeah,
from a
agree.
size and opportunity point of view, and profitability also.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah. The more you can integrate globally services, across industries that you
Yeah.
specialize in. That's, and I think clients want one provider
Yeah.
if they trust that provider that can do multiple things. So that's, another area is to be able to penetrate more opportunity within your existing client base.
So, David, I'll give you one example. Recently, we did one engagement for one client who wanted to expand to 10 countries in Europe. So, obviously, going to each consultant in each country in Europe is a pain point process and also,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, what
Hmm.
we do, we help them in terms of consolidated opinion or structure on the
Hmm.
supply chain of all these 10 countries in a one solution from our firm is concerned. And obviously, wherever we felt we need to have some second view from the local firm, we took,
Hmm.
not the client. And then the solution was presented and which was very well appreciated. One was it was one integrated solution. Second is the timeline we were able to respond to them was so fast. Well, otherwise,
Hmm.
getting to the coordination with 10 firm and the different people within that firm is a big challenge.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
That's one example. What I'm trying. We are doing a lot of things on global side, which I feel has a lot of scale, size, and value from a opportunity point
Hmm.
of view.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I agree with that. We're part of a global network. And so we're able to work in other countries with the
Next
firms
year,
that are, yeah, yeah, so firms that are members of Nexia in other countries, we support them in the US, they support us in the other countries.
uh,
And, we're the largest firm within the network. So we have a wide breadth, deep international tax experience, deep advisory experience in a number of areas. So we're able to support their client base as well.
just on
Yeah.
the side note, I met someone in next year. I was in China last week, so I met someone, their Asia Pacific head of next year. So
Oh, that's great.
they were mentioning about that we have the largest firm concentric in US and all that. I
Yeah.
said, I'm going to podcast with David next week. So, David, moving on, obviously from a Apex partner, as you obviously bits and point you have mentioned about things you are doing differently or what are you doing like 24 partner, five partners edition. So, what is a big vision or plan for next 3 to 5 years, taking the firm in terms of the growth and the direction is concerned?
Yeah, so our goal is to continue to grow, and we expect to be in the, I would say, 2.5 billion range to 3 billion range within 5 years. Our goal is, again, bigger's not better, but we want to take advantage of the market opportunities and grow through organic growth, continue to bring on lateral partners that continue to help us accelerate and leverage the growth and get into new areas, and then strategic M&A, both on the advisory side, CAS, CFO advisory, transaction advisory, I would say data analytics, and then in the US to continue to expand on the West Coast, in the Midwest. We're
Yeah.
heavily concentrated on the East Coast now, but there's certain markets that we want to expand in. And it's with good quality firms that are sizable and have a presence within their market, and then they can come in and they can help us continue this growth trajectory. And our goal is to get into the next tier under the big four, because that's the client base we serve now.
Uh,
And we want to continue to expand, from a industry and geographic standpoint, and as well as services. So, that's our goal from a growth standpoint. And then it's to continue to be on the forefront with technology so that, our clients can experience state of the art, more fluid process,
yeah.
and our people can experience that. So we want people to feel a difference, that when I'm working at Cone Resnick, it's easier. Look at what we're doing. And, that's what our corporate services has attempted to accomplish as we build out our team. We've hired a new chief administrative and transformation officer. We've hired a chief technology officer. We're continuing to build out the port that we need to
Yeah.
advance in all these areas.
No, 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 I think wishing you a lot of success. And I think once you cross 2.5 billion, hope I can join, have cheers with you, with your team.
Yes, we'll cheers. We will cheers. Yeah, I would like to do that. And again, I go back to where we started. it's such a wonderful profession. And, one
Yeah,
of the things you hear is, are we going to need accountants, because of AI? And yes, I think we're always going to need them. You look at how many are still being hired, you look at the demands that you have. I think the skills necessary will change and evolve, but they've changed and evolved, over the years. Now it's going to be more critical thinking, analytics, and people are going to have to be up to speed faster because a lot of that busy work is going to be eliminated. I think a significant amount of it's going to be eliminated, but with it's still a people business. And unless you're doing a very simple task,
yeah.
if you're doing
Basic
1040
work.
tax, if you're doing basic work, maybe 95% of that can be automated.
Yeah,
But, the work that we're doing is so complex, and there's so many nuances, and there's judgment involved.
yeah,
There's always going to be the need for humans to, and the impact to the clients is very significant too. The work that we do is important.
yeah.
So clients aren't going to accept that, oh, this whole thing was automated. Um,
I agree. So, David, I think as you just mentioned about AI also, which is a very big debate going on as of now. I will be interesting to know you also.
mhm,
One is, what is your take on with the AI going to have its impact, or what will be the dynamics of accounting firm post AI, say after three,
mhm,
5 years when the technology has matured? I think it's going to take its time to mature, or
mhm,
technology to
mhm,
mature also to that. And I agree with you. And there's no that we our relevance is not going to go down. It is, but we have to change at the same time also in terms of the new world is concerned. And second is obviously, do you think people are really putting an effort, and not from your firm perspective, at the market perspective, to change themselves to the new era of AI or not?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think older generations are going to have a harder time
Yeah,
because they're so used to the way they work. Think younger generations will adopt faster. And then I think, where the intersection is going to be so important is you're going to need the technical reviews. You hear all the stories about, ran it through AI and came up with wrong conclusions, or,
yeah,
cited wrong,
yeah,
cases or scenarios. So I think the, review are going to be so important. And, I think that's going to be more important in the future is the critical review and assessment. And I think, at some point, the AI results, it will be important to understand what the methodology and process was. And I think there's going to be an assurance element to AI solutions so that they're tested. And so you have some level of comfort that process has been tested, and then still you're going to have to review it very carefully, and
yeah.
not rely on it, but so I think, that's what the future is going to look like is, the risk of a false result, from AI that could, sneak up on you. And, so that's where humans are going to be absolutely important and critical in the success of all the gains that we're getting from AI.
Yeah, no, I agree
Hmm.
with you, David. I just mentioned to somewhere also that in future there are going to be two partners which are going to be very relevant. One is going to be AI partners,
Hmm. Hmm.
and second go is going to be the growth partners.
Yeah.
Two positions are going to be very important in the future.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. But also the number of software developers and, software engineers and,
Yeah,
process-oriented individuals and skill sets are going to continue to expand. And then you'll have the business generators and, the client coordinators and people that are coordinating the engagements and applying those tools and technologies. Yeah, I think. And then, what's going to happen also is there's going to be lots of off-the-shelf solutions that are created
yeah.
that, you'll be able to plug in and use to make gains. So I think that's where the smaller firms will benefit with the off-the-shelf solutions.
No, I think what that's my view. I was discussing that
Mhm,
with this technology coming up, so it has given a lot of demographic advantage or democratically in a sense. Earlier, the high-end technology was always Big Four only have the right to invent or to have used that
Hmm.
technology because of the cost and investment and size and scale. Now the technology off the shelf, which you mentioned, is so available in the market that even the smaller
Hmm.
firms can have that kind of same skill set in terms of using the technology, which was earlier, I think, the mostly being used by Big Four or Big Ten or Big 20 only. But other firms always struggle in terms of technology adoption is concerned.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So I think there's going to be the thing I think that's interesting is clients don't see how we do our
Yeah,
work.
obviously.
Yeah. So somebody could, be doing everything, by hand manually and, with no digitization and
Yeah.
clients don't know it, maybe they sense it, but they really don't know it. And so, you have that aspect and then it's going to be a matter, I think, of the client interaction. And I think that'll be the next wave is how do we create a process that's easier for the client with data sharing and make it easier? Because there's a lot of involvement from the client in what we do. And so if you can make that more fluid and easier and more efficient for the client, I think that's a big differentiator. And, that's one thing I think that's you're not gonna be able to, clients will see that. They might not see how you're doing your work, but they do see how they interact with you. And so I think that's an area of differentiation.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
obviously, the solution, the trust, and the relationship as human
Hmm.
being you will be evolving with your client is going
Hmm.
to be always relevant, is going to more relevant in the future, especially
Hmm.
in the technology, so
Hmm.
high-end technology era is going.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, so David, I think I have already overrun the schedule also, but I think we could have continued another half an hour also.
Yeah, I think so. It's easy and fun to talk about this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate being here with you. Thank you.
No, no, thanks. Maybe I can close our discussion with a rapid fire question if you allow me.
Sure.
So I think one leadership lesson that shaped you the most, especially last 6 years.
Leadership lesson is listen to others and make quick decisions and go with your gut.
Gut and instinct.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned in between, but one biggest misconception about PE back accounting firms.
The biggest misconception, I think, is that they'll ruin your business, ruin your culture, change who you are. I think that's a misconception. I think you should partner up with a firm that understands you and align, on what the mission is. And as long as they understand what got you to where you are. And if you agree on what your vision is for the future, I think you're in good hands. And also, I think having a patient investor that is there for is there for a term that allows you to thrive because there's a lot you can't control and the economy and global workings and things you can't control. So financial engineering is not the way to success.
The next question, although I know the answer, but still I'll ask you, if you're starting your career today, would you still choose accounting for profession or not?
I would 100%. And I think it's one of the best professions. There's so much excitement and learnings,
Yeah.
and there's also so much variety.
So last question, David, if one legacy you hope, Konzek, you want to leave at the firm.
One legacy that I want to leave at the firm is our reputation and culture. I want to leave it in better than when I started and continue to enhance that legacy and that culture. And it's all about the people and
Yeah.
how people work with each other and the entrepreneurial spirit, I would say. Entrepreneurial spirit.
And the most important, execution success, the
Yeah.
execution
Hmm.
that's very
Hmm.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Thanks, David,
Hmm.
for your time today. I think
Yeah.
it's really interesting. As I mentioned, we could have gone and gone and gone
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
that, but somewhere we need
I
to pause.
agree.
I hope you had a good time and enjoyed our discussion.
I had a wonderful time. I enjoyed the discussion very much. I look forward to seeing you again. And I wish you all the success in your firm and in your future podcasts. And let's keep making this profession great
Yeah,
and leaving it for those that come after us to continue to make
yeah.
it great.
That's our responsibility, I would say.
Yeah.
we should take as a responsibility. No,
Hmm.
definitely, David. I think we'll be in touch and definitely we'll be meeting. But the day of $2.5 billion hit,
That's
I
right.
look forward.
Exactly. Yep. We'll
Uh,
toast to that.